So we've spent a lot of time in practice over this past weekend. Yeah, time takes on a different quality when we're spending this much time in meditation. Much more boundless, much more free. And we're free to experience so much more in this boundless, infinite moment when we're dilated, when we're open in this way. And so we've experienced quite a bit of how our labels and judgments initially creep in, but then become very substantial. They become such a motivating catalyst in how we perceive the world. Instead of actually opening our eyes and looking, seeing what's right in front of us, we create stories, make assumptions, and allow the meanings to the labels we ascribe to things to actually shape our experience. And instead of mastering them, the labels of our own creation, the judgments of our own devising, they end up mastering us. We don't often see how these judgments become a filter through which we experience life. They keep us from fully engaging with this moment. A lot of times we may think we're in control, yeah? But it's those labels and stories that take on a life of their own. They actually wind up being in charge. They wind up shaping the reality the way we perceive it. But what happens when we actually let them go? It's a hard thing to do, particularly the labels we apply to our own selves. But when we do that, we step beyond the small self, beyond the story, and we can begin to see clearly. And what we were looking at reveals itself as just this. There's a case in the Uman. It's a 16th case. It's called The Sound of the Bell and the Seven-Panel Robe. Seven-panel robe represents the robes of the Buddha that we put on when we sit meditation. In this case, Uman asks, the world is vast and wide. Why do you put on your seven-piece panel robe at the sound of the bell? So, in the mornings when we sit meditation, we'll put our robes on our head. And then we ring the bell a special way to let us know it's time to chant. When we're done chanting, we put on our robes, saying, but your lived experience is so broad. Why do you respond in that way? So full of possibilities, infinite in scope, why do we still respond to the bell this way? Why do we follow the form? Why do we then put on the robe? The question here ultimately is not about the action, but about the deeper intention behind it. Are we putting on the robe because we think that's the appropriate thing to do based on what we've been told? Yeah. Because it's what we always do? Or are we responding directly to the moment as it presents itself? Are we fully engaged, fully awake, without the interference of our judgments or our assumptions? In practice, it's very easy for us to fall into the habit of going through the motion. Yeah? The bell rings, we curl up on our cushion and we sit. The mind labels it this routine, Zazen routine, yeah? Wrestling with the small self routine. But when we drop the labels, we really hear the bell and we let it penetrate ourselves, and something shifts. We're no longer putting on the robe because that's what we've been told to do, or that's what we think comes next. We're doing it because it's time, because the bell is ringing, because the moment is calling us to act. We're actualized by the experience, right? Not by our habits. There's a story about two monks discussing the miracles of their masters. The two monks encounter each other when they're on a vast pilgrimage. One says, my master is a really special dude, man. He can heal the sick. He can control the weather. He can even raise the dead from the grave. Yeah. The second monk listens quietly. Yeah. Finally, the first monk says to the second, well, what does your master do? He says, my master does even greater miracles. When he's hungry, he eats. And when he's tired, he sleeps. The simplicity cuts through all the grandiosity of what you think a miracle is, so you can recognize that miracle right here in that moment. The miracle is always present when we live in harmony with our lives, with this moment, without anything extra, without any judgments to get in the way. When Uman asks why we put on the robe at the center of the bell, he's pointing to the same truth. It's not about the robe, it's not about the bell, it's not even about the action itself. It's about whether we're truly present, fully engaged with our lives. Not the life that we hope we'll get to someday and live. Not the life that's shaped by our past actions, but the life that's unfolding before you right now. Everything else are just tools for seeing clearly. They help us move beyond the labels and judgments that cloud our perception, bringing us back to the truth of what's right here. This is where discipline comes in. Discipline is not a popular term anymore. We talk about discipline and people immediately want to check out. Say, I'm not in for that. But discipline is just a label too, right? And what is on the same coin with discipline is freedom. It's not about rigidity or following forms or sticking to routines just because that's what we do. It's about showing up fully in each moment and doing what needs to be done. Not because of some idea of what we think we're supposed to do, but because it's the call of the moment as it presents itself. That's where this practice points. That's why we practice. And not out of habit. We practice this way, we step beyond the small self that clings to stories and judgments. We don't need to control the moment. We don't need to label it. We simply respond. We act from the depths of our heart, from our true nature, from the vastness of the world Uman's pointing to. But we often don't see that vast and wide world in the simplicity of our actions, We think, I'm just brushing my teeth. I'm just tying my shoes. But when we practice, and we practice well, both of those are gateways to the vast and boundless source of awakening. And in that place, we find true freedom. Freedom from the stories, freedom from the judgments, freedom from the self that holds you in confinement. So as you continue this practice, and I hope you will, remember this. This world is vast and wide. So many possibilities, but also so much suffering. You've gotten a glimpse of your true nature. You know you have within you what it takes to address that suffering. Not just the suffering that you find within the confines of what you call yourselves, but everywhere you find it. The bell is ringing. I promise. How are you moved? How are you called? Are you awake? Are you paying attention? This is the heart of practice. Actually hear and see what's right in front of you, and respond with clarity and with intention. But that implies you have an intention, and that you've set that intention. That intention to show up and be the medicine that's needed in every circumstance as it presents itself. Stay with it. Stay with what's in front of you. Practice with discipline. But let that discipline come from a place of presence, never routine. When we're hungry, we'll eat. And when we're tired, we'll sleep. But then when we wake up, we sit zazen. And when we sit zazen, we open to our lives in a new way so that we can put one foot in front of the other. Moving through our lives with courage and with skill. And saving all sentient beings from suffering. When that bell rings, put on your robe. Not because you should, but because it's time.